Hello and welcome to another episode of Unreleased or Unobtainable, a series where I either look at games that were never released or are extremely expensive because they're rare and were sold in limited quantities. This is achieved through the miracle that is emulation, since a lowly YouTuber like myself cannot afford the thousands of dollars that unobtainables go for, and because the unreleased are simply that. Hard driving stands out as a technical feat for the late 80s arcade scene. It was one of the first games to feature a fully 3D rendered environment to drive around when the competition was still, for the most part, sprite based. Translating these achievements to home consoles and computers was always going to be a problematic endeavour, but while consoles like the Sega Genesis and computers like the Atari ST produced interesting results considering their hardware, I doubt anyone ever expected hard driving to appear on the humble NES. 3D on a stock NES? You gotta be having a laugh. Well, oh, that's quite impressive actually, and wait, it was never released? The story for hard driving's ill-fated port on the NES starts in a July 1990 Mean Machines magazine article. Not just any issue of Mean Machines either, but its pilot issue number 0, if you will. In an article previewing the game, the graphics are commended and compared to the arcade original. Mark Morris is identified as the developer, and a somewhat vague release date of mid-1991 is given. Currently, that deadline is 31 years late and counting, so you can probably stop holding your breath. Luckily for us, however, the very nature of these videos is spurred on by prototypes being freely available. So let's fire up the nearest available emulator and see how it plays. For reasons we'll soon get into, this port is unfinished. A technical achievement? Absolutely. Perfect though? Far from it. But that's okay, it makes for interesting YouTube fodder decades later. The map screen is certainly comprehensive enough, staying true to its contemporaries, but there is a lot on that map screen you'll never see. Whether it's been deliberately left out or just never had the chance to be added is up for debate. I guess you'll have to ask Mark Morris, but what we do get are two modes, speed and stunt. Speed consists of lapping a circuit to a time limit, avoiding any sort of crashing. Stunt, however, does indeed include driving that would be considered hard. Yes, there's a jump, there's sudden dips and rises in the road, and of course, the famous loop. The handling is, honestly, not that bad. The vehicle feels weighted and utilising the brake is definitely necessary. The collision detection is very questionable though. One hopes this would have been honed out for a finalised release. There are other vehicles on the road, although they're only oncoming. I feel like there are plenty of times where I didn't hit a car but should have, like some sort of divine intervention. On the other hand, however, I might have been pumping the brakes around the corner and crash, seemingly having collided with nothing. It's hard to criticise a prototype. I don't want to appear too petty, only a little bit. But these things need to be at least mentioned. So, while we're on that train, yes, the sound sucks, especially when you're braking. It's like an audio incarnation of a migraine. No music plays while you're driving at all either, but it is what it is. You do get a funky, if short theme in the menu, however. What we really want to talk about are the graphics, of course. Well, basic, this is seemingly real 3D. There was nothing like the Super FX chip on the NES, so how is this possible? Well, delving into the release of the prototype gives some insight. For all of this, we have the website Lost Levels to thank. Far from the drama of my last unreleased video, where the release of Superman 2000 was a years-long affair, a single casual interview spurred the release of this ROM. It all started with the webmaster for Lost Levels, Frank Cifaldi, browsing an archive for Mean Machines magazine, who he incidentally later wrote for. It was there he discovered the preview for the NES port in issue 0. He wrote an article on his find in 2007 and mentioned Mark Morris's success, hoping for more insight. Cifaldi ended the article directly questioning if Morris was out there to shed some light on the situation. Well, it turns out he was. In a follow-up interview in 2013, it turns out that in the intervening years, the duo had become friends in 2009 after Morris discovered the original article. It's here we learn more about Morris's story. Morris worked for Tengen through Domark as a subcontractor in what could be considered turbulent times, since Tengen were in legal battles with Nintendo over releasing unlicensed NES games. That could very well be a story for another video though. In the interview, Cifaldi's requests for how the game could be possible were answered. Portions like the jump and loop were described as something like an interactive animation. As opposed to something that might be rendered in real time, the animation would change if you moved left, right, or fell off the loop. Even though the frame rate is slow, the effect works well. This was all made possible with the help of Jürgen Friedrich, who developed the popular Atari ST version. Exploring the game, it's a shame it was cancelled. Even though it was previewed at a CES, which I'm thinking is where Mean Machines got their screenshots from, Morris revealed it was cancelled because executives at Tengen didn't think it was of publishable quality. That's a shame since it was seemingly so successful as a prototype, who knows what the result might have been if it was given more time to bake. Fortunately for us, Morris kept his prototype cartridge all these years and uploaded it for the interview. At the time, it was warned that the dumped ROM wasn't playing nice with emulators thanks to its unique graphical qualities, but that appears to not be an issue nearly a decade later. I used, this program for my footage. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it's freely available, as is the ROM if you wish to play it yourself. You'll find it hosted on plenty of websites like Hidden Palace. It's interesting, if a bit redundant, to compare the NES version to the only other home console port of hard driving, which is on the ever-faithful Sega Genesis. Don't get me wrong, this is not a good game, but you know how I feel about 3D games where they don't belong. And yes, I did go straight to eBay and buy a physical copy after trying it in emulation. I just couldn't help myself. So, to wrap things up, it goes without saying that this outro is not going to be surprising. The game is amazing for what it is, but ultimately is anything but amazing in the gameplay department. I played this for a total of half an hour and will likely never touch it again. But I do appreciate its existence. So, hats off to you hard driving. Hats off to you Jürgen Friedrich. Hats off to you Frank Cifaldi for bringing all this together. And of course, very big hats off to you, Mark Morris. 3D on the NES has solidified you as a legend.